If we think on the one hand of EU competition law and the competences of the EU, and on the other hand the competences of the member states and the responsibility of the tax enforcement administration, which could be the binding elements between that. First of all, it is an improvement of EU legislation, improvement of transparency rules, improvement of international transparency rules, but also, of course, the implementation, the enforcement of these rules at national level, first of all. Second of all, for Australians, of course, very important, the efficiency of tax administrations, those fighting against tax fraud, tax evasion, tax avoidance, meaning they have to be well equipped, they have to be enough in numbers, they have to be well paid, they have to learn also how to exchange information, how to cooperate with other tax authorities in the member states. And I think if we have, let's say, these initiatives on different levels, then I think for the future we can look forward to a more efficient tackling of tax avoidance and a more efficient fight of tax fraud and tax evasion, not only at member state level but EU, and hopefully beyond that level too.
I think what the European Union has done in recent years in the area of competition policy and tackling tax avoidance, which has been done with the help of some of the member states, has been very useful. But it's not the answer for the tax competition within the European Union. We still have a situation where different countries have very different policies, very different tax rates, and that leads to a situation where companies can still shop around, they can still decide where to go within Europe according to taxation issues. In the long run, that is something we need to tackle, but there's still a lot of resistance by the member states. What we also need to tackle is the international situation. Taxation is now a global issue. It is something where a number of countries have become active, including the US. It would be the right moment to also find a global answer, which makes sure that companies cannot shop around at the global level.
Tax competition, in the view of the European Federation of Public Services Union, is at the heart of the problems regarding corporate tax avoidance. Having said that, state aid policy can be used as a tool to combat corporate tax avoidance, and this is indeed what we've done together with a North American union, SEIU, and another European federation of trade unions organizing workers in McDonald's. We came together to name and shame basically McDonald's tax and social behavior. And following a publication of a report called Unhappy Meal, this contributed to the Commission launching an investigation on whether McDonald's tax arrangements in Luxembourg could be subject to illegal state aid. So for the trade unions, obviously for trade unions organizing representing public service workers, the campaigning for tax justice, so basically for tax to be progressive, for tax system to be transparent, efficient, but also simpler. This is key to the financing of public services, especially when they have been subject in a majority of countries to austerity measures for the past 10 years with cuts in jobs, in pay, and what we are saying is that there was certainly no need for austerity measures, given that there was an awful lot of unpaid tax that could be used, if it was recuperated, that could be used to finance public services.
The taxes are for financing the public services for citizens, and that's the important question. And we see how many losses we have in the last time of taxes because of tax avoidance, tax fraud and so on. And for me, it has to be also very important to have a certain proportion in between the tax burden of citizens and the tax burden of the firms. And there is the big problem. I see that more and more the citizens are paying the taxes and are responsible to finance the public services. and the firms take profit out of the public services and don't pay their share to finance these public services. And that's why we need Europe. Europe needs, from my point of view, much more pressure to harmonizing the tax system and to fix a minimal tax rate.
Today we have seen that the topic of tax evasion, profit shifting and tax avoidance is very important, and the UFE supports the fight against it, but nevertheless we have to say that the best laws and the best directives are totally useless if we in the tax administration don't have enough people who are working against tax crime. And we really want to highlight that every additional tax or custom officer is a good step in the right direction and brings even more justice for the countries, but also justice for a fair market within the European Union.
In this area, the member states, until the 31 of December 18, the member states implemented this ATAD directive. The problem is in this area that only minimum standards are implemented, and therefore the problematic of the rulings and also generally the tax avoidance and the tax evasion continues in the member states. And finally, I think that in the area of the civil servants, that it would be very important that the tax money that is avoided now comes to the state's budgets and is used for in the area of the government's administrations, that the civil servants have sufficient means, sufficient staff, sufficient wages, and also sufficient pensions afterwards.